The snowstorm howled like a beast unleashed from the heavens, tearing through the fragile metal wings of the small aircraft. Screams filled the cabin, prayers tangled with cries, and in a single instant the world turned upside down. The crash came like thunder splitting the mountains, and silence followed, except for the crackle of fire and the endless sigh of the wind. From the wreckage, a faint voice whispered for help, and amidst the smoke and ruin, a young girl's trembling hands clawed at the cold earth. Her name was Elena, only 16 years old, and on that terrible day, fate chose her to walk the impossible path between death and life. Her body ached, every bone seeming to scream with pain, but her heart was still beating. She opened her eyes to the broken pieces of what had once been a journey home. Around her, the mountains stretched high and merciless, their peaks lost in storms. She was surrounded by fire, shards of metal, and silence that carried the weight of tragedy. The faces of strangers who had shared the flight with her were now still, frozen in a final rest. Elena tried to call out for her parents, but they were not there. They had been waiting for her at the airport, excited for her return from a school trip. The cruel truth struck her. She was utterly alone in a place where survival seemed impossible. Fear surged inside her, but it was quickly joined by something stronger, an instinct to live. She dragged herself from the twisted wreck, every step a battle against pain and despair. The cold bit into her skin, and the snow beneath her felt like knives, but the thought of her family's faces gave her the will to push forward. She wrapped herself in scraps of fabric torn from the seats, trying to shield her body from the cruel winter air. Hours slipped into a blur, marked only by her shallow breaths and the pounding of her heart. The mountains did not welcome her. Each day brought new challenges that tested the limits of her endurance. Food was scarce. She learned to chew frozen berries and strip bark from trees to keep her stomach from collapsing in hunger. Water was drawn from melted snow, though it froze her lips and burned her throat. Nights were the worst. Darkness in the mountains was not gentle. It pressed against her from all sides, filled with eerie sounds of unseen creatures. Her hands trembled as she huddled close to a faint fire she managed to spark with pieces of wreckage, praying that it would last until dawn. Memories of her family kept her spirit alive. She remembered her mother's warm hands, her father's gentle laughter, the stories they told her before bedtime. She imagined them waiting, searching, praying that she would come back to them. The love in her heart became her compass. Each step forward was for them, each breath stolen from the mountain air a promise that she would not give up. But survival was never simple. Days turned into weeks, and her strength began to falter. Once, while searching for shelter, she slipped on the icy slope and tumbled down a jagged hill, her leg crashing against sharp rocks. Pain surged like fire through her body, leaving her gasping and unable to move for hours. She thought of surrendering then, closing her eyes and letting the cold carry her into sleep. But a vision of her little brother's smile flashed in her mind. He needed her. Her parents needed her. She bit her lip until it bled, forcing herself to crawl despite the agony. Inch by inch, she pulled herself toward safety, whispering promises into the wind that she would not leave this world without fighting. One night, the storm grew so fierce that it tore apart the fragile shelter she had built from branches and snow. The wind screamed through the valley, and she clung to the roots of a fallen tree, her body battered by the icy blast. Her tears froze on her cheeks, yet deep within her, a flame of defiance burned. "You will not take me," she whispered to the storm, her voice shaking but unbroken. The mountain wanted her silence, but she refused to give it. After many days, when hope seemed faint, Elena spotted a trail. Human footprints, faint but visible, marked the snow. Her heart leapt, and though her legs trembled, she followed them with a desperation that gave her strength. Hours later, she stumbled upon a small wooden hut hidden among the trees. Smoke curled from its chimney, a sign of life. She collapsed at its door, barely able to knock, her vision blurring as warmth and safety seemed finally within reach. The door opened, and a kind-eyed shepherd lifted her into his arms. He wrapped her in blankets, gave her broth to sip, and listened as her trembling voice told the story of fire, wreckage, and lonely survival. Word spread quickly, and rescuers were called. Elena's ordeal was over, but her journey had only just begun. She was carried back to her family, and when they saw her again, their cries filled the air with both grief and joy. They held her tightly, unable to believe that the girl they feared lost forever had returned. In the weeks that followed, Elena's body healed slowly, but her spirit bore scars deeper than anyone could see. Nightmares of the crash haunted her dreams, and the memory of the lifeless faces she had left behind weighed heavily on her heart. She struggled with guilt, asking why she had been spared while so many others were not. But her family never let her sink into despair. They reminded her that survival was not a curse but a gift, and that her story could bring light to others lost in darkness. She began to share her journey, speaking to groups of children, families, and strangers who listened with tears in their eyes. She told them how fear can break you, but love can build you again. She spoke of hunger and pain, but also of hope and resilience. Slowly, her voice grew stronger, her heart lighter, and her message clearer. Life, no matter how fragile, is worth fighting for. Years passed, and Elena carried the title of survivor, though she never let it define her as broken. Instead, she wore it like a badge of courage, proof that even the weakest among us can rise against impossible odds. She studied medicine, determined to help others who faced the edge of death as she once had. In every patient she treated, she saw a reflection of her own journey, and in every smile she restored, she found healing for herself. Looking back at the mountains, she no longer felt fear. Instead, she saw a place that had tested her and revealed her strength. She was not just a girl who escaped tragedy. She was a beacon of hope for anyone standing at the edge of despair. She showed that survival is not just about enduring. It is about finding the courage to believe in tomorrow, even when today seems unbearable. Her story became a reminder that life can shatter in a moment, but from the ruins, something stronger can rise. Elena's path from the sky to the snow, from loss to love, from pain to purpose, was a testament to the power of the human spirit. She proved that even in the darkest wilderness, the heart can find its way home. And in the quiet moments, when she sat surrounded by her family's laughter, she would whisper to herself, "I survived not to be broken, but to live." Her journey was no longer a tragedy, but a song of resilience echoing into the world, reminding everyone who heard it that happiness is not the absence of struggle, but the victory of hope over despair.